you guys. Something amazing happened last week. My wife and I, we renewed our vows after 16 years of marriage, and it was amazing. Mike was there, a bunch of key guys in my life were there, and we made the focus God. Right? That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to put that focus on God. Because Romans 8:28, it says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love Him, who have been called according to His purpose. The challenge is, I didn't always know that. Okay? I was born in Trinidad. I did not know Daryl was born in Trinidad. This is so cool. My family is from Siparia, so yes.
Wow.
But I was born in Trinidad, and growing up, I always felt this sense of longing, right? Like there's something missing. I just always felt like there was something missing. And I look at my pictures from growing up as a kid, and I'm always by myself, right? My family in Trinidad, I don't know, Daryl may know if this is normal or not, but my dad was married and had a family, but then he also had us as a family, right? So it blows my mind now, because today I look at that and I think, man, I remember him being there for dinner. Like, how did you do that? Right? Like, this was just a normal thing. Like, he was there. I remember him there all the time. But that, he had his own separate family. And when I was 8, my mom decided she needed a better life. So she moved to Canada. And she took me with her. Challenge is, I thought I was going on a 2-week trip to Venezuela. Okay? I'm still getting there, don't worry. Okay? I'll get there. But, we took a sidetrack to Canada for a few years. So, it was different. My whole world was rocked. I remember the day that we moved. It was October 30th. The next day I thought, pardon my French, Canadians were crazy, because you guys were knocking on the doors saying trick or treat. I'm like, what do you want? Like, this is crazy. So I quickly had to figure out friendships. I never got to say goodbye to anybody in Trinidad, right? It was just like, yeah, you're going on a 2-week vacation. You'll see them in a couple weeks. Don't worry about it. So that life is gone. I don't remember anybody. And that was hard for a number of years for me. But there was always a sense of longing, right? I was always longing for something. And then as I got into my 20s, my wife, who was my girlfriend at the time, I remember having this discussion with her. And I would say it's a discussion. She would probably say it's an argument, because we were talking about God. And I remember questioning her about God. It's like, well, like, dude, if this guy was real, like, why would he put so much, like, why would we be struggling? Like, why would I have so many questions? Like, life would be easier. Like, it would have to be. And I remember saying a few things that I shouldn't have said, and surprisingly, we're still together after I said those things about God, because she's always had a really tight relationship with God, and I respect that. Like, I did not. So through my 20s, I was very angry, right? Because my dad wasn't there. I remember when I was 13, actually, the straw that broke the camel's back for me was I went home to Trinidad, and I asked, like, I was there for 2 months, and I'm like, I just want to see my dad. I just want to see my dad. I just want to see my dad. And they're like, yep, in a couple weeks, in a couple weeks, in a couple weeks, in a couple weeks. And then by the end of the summer, it's like, okay, I gotta go home to Canada in like 2 days. I gotta see my dad. Well, your dad doesn't want to see you. I was like, oh, okay. Right? To this day, I don't know. Did my dad really not want to see me? Or did my mom say, you know what, don't worry about it, right? Like, I don't know. And I carried that with me throughout life. And the most amazing thing happens, though, I guess, because there's this song, and you guys probably know it, even when I don't see it, you're working. Even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop working. I know that now, right? I didn't always know that, though. And the last few years, probably last 5 years, was one of the most hardest 5 years of my life. Like, I've gone through the lowest lows, some of the stupidest mistakes, everything that could possibly have happened in the last 5 years. And I remember going to a networking event, and I remember meeting Fausto, who's a friend of ours who knows Mike. And I remember walking into that event, and I'm like, Fausto, I really want to talk to you, but I can't talk to you now because there's so many other people I want to meet. So we'll talk together next week. And I went and had a great conversation with Fausto. He was telling me about some stuff, and we ended up getting together. And he said, hey, there's this great group of guys you should meet. You want to come over and meet them? So I met Mike, and I met Ricardo, and I met Adam, and all these great guys. And started teaching me about, or guiding me and showing me what it meant to have a relationship with God versus knowing God. Because I grew up Catholic and I knew God, but I was scared of God, right? But they were showing me it's possible to have a relationship with God. And so 2 pivotal moments for me in that journey was last year. I was talking to Ricardo in the morning after a networking event. We were at the Leader Impact Group. And he said, I was telling him, I'm like, yeah, my wife and I are going through some struggles. He's like, if you want to get closer to your wife, you have to get closer to God. It's just the way it works. There's this triangle. And he's like, it just works. I said, okay. I don't know if I believed him or not, but I thought, it sounds easy enough. I'm going to try this out. So I went home and I told my wife what Ricardo said, and she just started bawling. Like just bawling.
That's a clue.
And in that moment, she's like, no, it's not that easy. And she said, and she started bawling even more after she said that, because I said, what's wrong? She's like, well, God just told me it is that easy. I was like, whoa, that's cool. Wow. Because she, like, her and God talk like that. I'm not there yet. So then the second most amazing thing was Mike invited me to this event last year. And it's unbelievable the way things work out. Like, my son's here this year. He was supposed to be here last year, but he got sick the night before. And the day of, I'm leaving, and this kid's like, Dad, don't go. I'm like, dude, it's all good. Like, it's fine. And he's like, no. And he's like holding on to me. I remember like getting in the car, trying to close the car door, and he's like pulling me. And he's smiling because he remembers. And I was like, man, it's not that big of a deal. Little did I know God had big plans, so it was a big deal that I go. And unfortunately, that was probably the devil trying to keep me away from doing what God had in mind that day. But I came on this thing, and I met Dave, I met Paul. We were in the same boat. It was amazing. I'm like, man, these guys are so cool. These guys are like praising the Lord, and they're okay with it. This is neat. Never seen this before. And I just remember Dave's smile when we walked into the store. His booming smile. I was like, whoa, this guy's amazing. He's got chains. Like, he's all about the Lord, but he's got tattoos. This doesn't match up in my mind, right? And then Dave shared his testimony on the island. And I remember thinking, holy smokes. Like, this guy's done some pretty crazy things, and the Lord accepted him. I wonder if it's possible if he could accept me. Maybe, I don't know. And then Mike invited, he gave everybody a rock and a stick. And you guys probably have this. You guys have this. And I remember Mike said, well, the significance of this is the stick. This represents your sins. I'm going to invite you guys to do this later. But Mike said to me, he said to all of us, this is your sins, just thrown in the fire, and that represents giving it to God, right? And I remember thinking, it's not that easy. It isn't that easy. In my mind, I'm thinking, I know what I've done, right? Like, it's not that easy. Like, you don't just get to throw it in the fire and it's gone, right? It just doesn't happen. And I remember sitting there, contemplating my sins, just going through my mind. And everybody's kind of like, there were some guys, man, they probably didn't know here before, because they just weren't. I'm like, wow, like, they have no sins, man. Like, they didn't even think about it. And I'm sitting here thinking, like, geez. And I couldn't do it, guys. I was just sitting there stuck. Because I couldn't throw it in, because I'm like, there's just way too much. And in that moment, I felt hands on my shoulders, right? And it was scary enough that I kind of flinched, but there was nobody there. And then I started getting emotional. And I'm like, I can't do this. And then the voice in my head said, just give it to me, I can take it. And I thought, I can't do it. And he said, it's okay, just give it to me, I can take it. So I went and I threw the stick in the fire. And in that moment, it was like a relief. Like a weight was just gone. You know, just lifted. It was just the most incredible feeling ever. And then Mike said, so now, because they were waiting for me, now we can move on. Mike jokes and he says, it was my voice, you know, I'm just the one who was talking to you that day. But Mike said, the stone represents a new name that God is going to give you. And in that moment, a name popped in my head, but I was like, oh, that's weird. Probably doesn't mean anything. So I remember walking back to the boats, because we were on the island at the time, and I said, Mike, I got to talk to you. Like, I need to talk to you. So he's like, okay. So the next week we went out for breakfast, and Mike is talking to me and, you know, telling me all these things, and he says, hey, have you ever accepted the Lord into your life? And I'm like, what? He's like, have you ever accepted the Lord? I'm like, I don't know. No, I don't really know. He's like, well, nobody else has asked you? I'm like, guess not. He's like, well, do you want to? Sure, just do it. What do you do? So Mike led me in a prayer, and I accepted the Lord into my life. And then we had this great conversation, because he was telling me about a book he was writing. And I said, man, you remember you were telling me about this name that God's going to give you? I said, tell me about that. Like, what is that? He's like, well, yeah. He's like, it's going to be a name like Nathaniel. I said, that's the name. I said, that's the name that I got. When you said that, the name popped in my head, Nathaniel. He's like, well, let's look it up what it means. And he's like, oh, it means gift of God, or gift from God. Now, here's the crazy thing. I was born in 1979. My mom was in her late 30s in Trinidad. I was not expected, right? When I was born, I had jaundice. I probably shouldn't have survived, because in Trinidad, medical care wasn't the best. Everybody dies of a heart attack. And I literally they just put me in the sun all day. I just sit there in the sun all day, right? And I started thinking about that, and I thought, man, like, that's the only way, right? Like, if I wasn't a gift from God, there's no way that would have happened. No way I would have survived. And I keep going back to something, and I think, man, like, everything that's happened in my life, like in the last 18 months, my wife and I got baptized together on my birthday in water, right? It was amazing. We got remarried, we have incredible friends, and I keep thinking, none of this is possible. Like, it's just not possible that I could be so blessed. But then I'm reminded in Matthew 19:26, Jesus looked at them and said, with man this is impossible, but with God all things are possible. And then Proverbs 3:5 and 6, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to him, and he will make your path straight. And that's exactly what he's done in my life. And I am grateful for all the amazing men that I've met, that have basically journeyed with me, because I know without a lot of these guys I wouldn't be here. Thank you.